Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. I'm going to apologize. I could probably use my recess voice and do this presentation. However, I'm also putting this on video. I want to make certain that anybody who wasn't here to have the conversation can hear exactly what was being asked, what was being presented. We will also make certain that this presentation is online. So let me begin with introductions. My name is Megan Bennett. I'm the superintendent here at Region 12, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here tonight. I am joined by our principal, Kathy Coella, so I think she's a little bit interested in this presentation as much as you all are as well. We also have our 3 representatives from the Board of Education who are your Roxbury representatives. So we have Greg Cava, who is the chairman of our Board of Education. We have Lisa Rash, who is our secretary, and we also have Justin Hunley, who joined us this year. I am going to go through the presentation that we have. I'm also going to say to you, this is designed to create a conversation. This is one of 6 presentations we're going to have. The reason that we created 6 is because I'm going to tell you I don't have all of the answers. Part of this is designing for what is our need, and so there may be questions that you pose that we haven't thought of. And so it is up to us, rather than giving the quick answer, to give the right answer, to give the thorough answer. This should be well thought out. This is about designing what is the future of our students and what's that going to look like. So I also want to acknowledge we have Jim Conway, who is here with us tonight, our selectman of that. I have talked with Barbara Henry about the upcoming changes and some of the suggestions that I will be presenting. And she sends her regrets. She's not able to be here tonight. However, she has told me she will be at our future presentations. So again, it's an honor to work with a community that has so many vested people. And I loved when I was meeting people as they were coming in and they were sharing that they no longer have children here. However, they're very interested in what's going to happen. And I think that goes to show that there's a legacy we need to honor and we need to have that conversation. So let's start with first to say that I want to acknowledge that Roxbury, Bridgewater, and Washington are 3 very different towns. I laughingly and actually I'm going to say to you, lovingly say they are like 3 siblings. And Washington tends to be like the oldest child, very tight guy. And then we have Bridgewater, that's a little bit more like the younger child, a little more, what are the rules, how do we navigate around those? And then there's Roxbury. And I always feel like Roxbury is the middle child who's, how do we all get along? What do we do? Like, how do we keep the ship sailing? But Roxbury deserves better than that. I myself am a middle child. I think we should have attention. I think we should look at doing something that's not just about staying the course because it's easy, but finding a way to do something that's right for the education of our students. And that's where we are today. We're not going to just mimic what happened in another town. We are going to design it because this is what's right for Roxbury. And that's what this is about. These are what the 6 conversations are going to be about. So keep that in mind as we go forward. So I came in last year and I was listening to conversations. And there were a lot of conversations about spirits feeling like they were dwindling, that sometimes the energies that really were draining the same people, and how do we invigorate, and what are we going to do? And what are we going to do in order to make certain that energies are brought back into the school? What can we do in order to bring life back in? What is it something that if we don't love the creation of the school, then what do we do about it? Because we can sit here and we can say, we wish we had this or we wish we could do that. We have the opportunity to do something. And the question becomes, what are we going to do with an opportunity? So I am going to say to you, and I'm going to apologize, I don't have a podium because otherwise you'd just be talking beforehand, so I'm going to keep going back to my notes, but I do want to say that this, to me, is about making certain that we have the right amount of energies to put into booth 3. We could not have done this. We had the numbers to do this last year, but we didn't have the right amount of energy. We had things going on in Chicago. We had agri-science. We needed to make sure that program was up and running. This is one where you can't go into a change half-hearted with half the energy or spread out thin. It needs to be because we are going to have concentrated support. This is about directing resources and energy into Booth to make certain that we're doing something that is right for our students. So I want to talk to you a little bit about, this is something we get, which is the Prada Report. The Prada Report is a report done every year in which we have a statistician who comes in, figures out birth rates, he looks at all of the variables to figure out what our population will be like based on 10 years, looking forward to the next 10 years. This starts to give us a sense of when we have bumps in birth rates, when we lay stagnant. It helps us to make some of our decisions. And one of the things that you can see is that when we look at 2000, and I did write K-5 on there, we had 500 students in the year 2000. Come over to where we are today, and we are now just above 200 students in our elementary and K-5 schools. So recognizing things are changing, and how do we meet that change? And what do we do in order to make certain that our students are given the opportunities that have always been provided to them? And again, sometimes it's easy to change the course of a ship when it's a smaller ship. When you have to move a big ship, it can take more energies. So looking at when is it the right size and when is it the right time. So looking at this, we're starting to see, okay, we're starting to see a little bit of a plateau. So currently, this is what booth free enrollment is looking like. And I'm going to say to you right now, if you want to look at those numbers and tell me you had to buy a different amount of Valentines, please let me know now, because I'll change those numbers. But it is to say, that's what's sitting in our classroom. And we do know that with kindergarten enrollment, things can change, and the guidance is the week in which kindergarten enrollment is happening. So right now, those were the numbers. When I put together the presentation, I will adjust as we have more information, because I want to make this as real time as possible. But it's to say, this is what's sitting in our classrooms today. So when I look at the 20-year projection for Booth Free School, we can see in 2009 we had 112 students. To go to where we are today, and we're looking at 69 students at this time, and for the next 10 years, we average 72 students in our school. That is a flat plateau, which also means that we're looking at, if we change the model, what is the sustainability of the model? If we have bump ups, what would we do with that model? Does it have the ability to expand? So we don't want to do this. This is not about looking at what's happening today. It's also about making certain that we're looking into the future and what's happening with the future. So the question comes, we're small. I personally am partial to things that are small. We're small and we can do something. And the question is if you were to redesign schools, would you have the industrial model in which you're segregated by age? Would you design a school like that from the ground up? I have 2 daughters at home. Right now they are middle school age. I know, feel bad for me for about half a second. And I will tell you that when they were 6 years old, even though they were 2 years apart from being 6 years old, they were very different 6-year-olds. And they're very different 7-year-olds. And so the industrial model, the way we've designed education, is all the students who turn 5 by August go into this bucket. Ones who turn 6 by August go into that bucket. And we push them down the line, as if they are cars, as if they are all the same. And the question is that are we generalizing education, or are we personalizing education? In the industrial model, you are looking at a generalization. You're creating an average child. And I challenge you to say, is there an average child? So if you could open up opportunities to promote students and blur the lines of grade levels, would you? Could we reuse personnel? Can we change it up so that way more support can go in during opportune times, and we can have more diverse learning experiences that have open-ended thinking, that allows for some diversity based on experiences. And guess what? A 6-year-old has a little bit of a different experience than a 7-year-old, who has a different experience than a 5-year-old. The we can learn from each of those experiences. And so as we look at, if this was something that we could design today and we had the opportunity to, what would you do? And I challenge you to say that right now we have the right model in having a single grade. So right now we're looking at the assembly line of graduates. And that's really what we have right now, is that we have to get them into their compartments. In Region 12, we have the same expectation that they are going to Chicago in 6th grade, which also means we need to make certain all of the students are ready. And we are not going to create a model to disadvantage any child from their readiness to go into our high school. So we're looking at what does it mean to design this graduate, and how do we actually affect them. So when you look at it happened in 2010, one of the things I'm going to say to you is there is nothing I'm going to present tonight that is unique, that is revolutionary. I will tell you I'm really good at being the first follower. I will watch how somebody else has failed, I will watch how someone else has succeeded, and I will make calculated decisions. So when we say back in 2010, the Secretary of Education, Duncan, said, our K-12 system largely adheres to a century-old industrial-age factory model of education. And as you go on, it talks about seat time requirements. And that's what we have right now. We have cute little 7- and 8-year-olds, and as long as I put my time in this seat, I will go on to 3rd grade. And as long as I put my time in this seat and get as much work done as the teacher really needs me to do, I will go on to the next one. And to say to you, putting in the seat time is not enough. It has to be about the learning that happens. And so we need to look at, if the factory model of education is wrong, then what is the right model for the 21st century? And so this is where taking a look and saying, which classroom are we trying to replicate? We are done with rows. We want students to learn in collaborative fashions. We buy very flexible, hard to sit in seats as an adult, but for kids, they love it. Like, we move them around. We want them going from place to place. We want that movement happening. Then are we designing a system that supports that movement, that learning? And so, looking at the benefits of going to multi-age. And again, I'm not going to read to you, but I do want to highlight the fact that multi-age programs are helping students develop social, emotional, verbal skills, and self-esteem. We need to create a child-centered learning experience by design. Right now, we rely on our teachers to create these opportunities, and we have to, teachers have done a wonderful job. This is not a knock. Looking for change is not because something is wrong or that the teachers did anything bad. It's about saying, but if we design a system in which teachers could be more successful, how can we put more efforts into allowing for freedom of choice, for project-based learning, for our students to have an opportunity to really explore thoughts without being time-bound. So, some of the student, teacher, and parent benefits. Going to a multi-age classroom allows for less transitions throughout the elementary career. So if we were to say, for instance, kindergarten, 1st grade together, 2nd and 3rd, 4th and 5th, that is 3 transitions, as opposed to the 6 that we do. We have teachers who come in looping, knowing their children, being able to support rather than spending that first month trying to make sure we get behavior systems in place. We have the head start of being able to know that child and to personally deliver from where they landed in June to where they need to be in September. And quite frankly, there are no other jobs in which you get to hit the reset button with just a whole fresh new set of groups. That was so good. A reset button. It should be a continuum of learning. And how are we designing a system that supports that? So the question becomes then, what other benefits do we have? We have start with our students who have special needs, and that includes both students who are struggling and have different needs, as well as students who may be gifted and need to be challenged. We create a system that supports those. It allows for more professional collaboration amongst staff. If we have staff working together in a classroom, suddenly they're talking about their experiences. They're not just talking about students as if it's their test scores and what does that data look like. We start to look at the sophistication in which they are answering those questions. We have conversations because we have a shared experience. And so we have more opportunities to personalize given those parameters. And also it reduces the generalization about students' abilities at grade level. We just talked about it. There is no idea of a true average child. I don't know how many people have, there's a great TED Talk, and it's called The Myth of Average. And the presenter starts and he talks about the fact that the Air Force designed the cockpit of the airplanes for the average pilot. So what they did is they measured everybody's arms, they measured their legs, they measured torsos, they measured line of sight, and they took all of these measurements and they put it in based on the average, right? Put it all in, figure out what is the mean of it, and design accordingly. And what they found is they designed a cockpit for no one. You need to design to the edges. You need to be able to have the adjustable seating. That's why I would not be driving today. My feet would not reach the pedals if they didn't have adjustable seats. It's about making certain that we are designing our classrooms the same way. There is a myth of average, and yet when we generalize the student's ability, we've created an average, and we've really not taught to the child. We've taught to the egos. So recognizing there is a continuum that happens within our curriculum. Right now, English language arts, last page of your document, I have shared scope and sequence for language arts. Looking along, kindergarten and first grade, in that very first standard, ask and answer questions about key detail in text. First grade, ask and answer questions about key detail in text. What changes is the sophistication in which the answer is delivered. Because if you notice in kindergarten it says, with props. It does not say that in providing support. However, we still have very similar expectations when we look at standards. Every single grade level, kindergarten all the way up through 5th grade, they have to work on what is the main idea, what are the supporting details. However, the expectations of what we're asking for students change. And right now the expectations change based on the chronological number of the child more than the expectation of the child themselves. And so when we look at the continuum of learning, we're able to not hold true to the grade levels, but to appreciate the expectation of those grade levels and teach to those expectations so we can have the students actually deliver based on their ability, not based on the number in which they exist in this world. When you look at mathematics, I will tell you right now, I am a former coordinator of mathematics. I was a coordinator of mathematics for Hartford Public Schools. I was a coordinator for mathematics for Taunton Public Schools. Mathematics is a painfully tasked system. I can tell you right now, by 6th grade, we know who's going to take AP Calc. Because in order to take AP Calc, you have to get algebra by 8th grade. Because then you have to go algebra, geometry, you have to do your algebra 2, you have to go down this very prescribed pipeline on how to get to AP Calc. So by 6th grade, I need to make certain that we've got those children because I'm going to have to compact some of that learning in 7th grade so they can be prepared for the challenges of algebra. I share this with you because if you can make multi-age work in mathematics, you can make it work in any content area. Now, I'm also going to say to you, we have to design some of the content based on expectations for the children. And I will tell you, I had Ben right now, look in the He's doing some videotaping of multi-age classrooms at Burnham in order to make certain we can show what it looks like a day in the life of a multi-age student. And the first thing, he sends me an email. He says, they don't do multi-age for mathematics, what do I do? I said, videotape it. That's okay. We need to know that we've created a system that, guess what, sometimes we may have to teach to those grade level expectations. We may have to record the time in which we have teachers who are specifically teaching to that grade level skill and expectation. That's going to happen. It is not, when we're talking about multi-age, it's not taking first grade kindergarten and smushing it together and just saying, here's the curriculum, and we're going to have the teachers work twice as hard and get twice as much done, and it'll be really good for those kindergartners, but those first graders are going to be bored for a full year. That's not how multi-age works. Multi-age is about creating a learning spectrum and finding out where the students are on that spectrum and delivering the instruction that is appropriate for them. Talking about the next generation science students. Students can explore and be intellectually curious at a grade appropriate level. But I'm also going to say to you, I have gone into kindergarten classes where I had a little 5-year-old who I was talking about having bulldozers and tractors and all of these things, and we were talking about pushing and pulling. And he looked at me and goes, well, where does force come in this? We're not staying with kindergarten, you tell me about force. What do you know about this? And so to say, but again, he was in a first grade class. I could have ignored him and just said, no, honey, I'm just talking about pushing and pulling. But we can push him, and we can see where he can go, because we're blurring that lines of where we stop. And the statement of social studies. It's a story. It's the history of what it is. However, what we're expecting for written expression may change based on students' ability. Where the students are and what we're expecting out of them, out of that social studies writing, is going to differ. However, they can certainly both learn about the Native American studies, or how does Connecticut come to be, and whether or not they get that lesson in 3rd grade or in 2nd grade, they will get that learning on that continuum, and that's what's important. So, to say to you, we have the ability to be part of this decision-making process. I just gave you a whole bunch of philosophy, and this is why I think this is great. And I can tell you right now, this is not about what I think is right. This is about designing something that is a reflection of Roxbury. This is about saying which one of these would be right for our children in order to provide some of that dynamic opportunity. And so what I want to present are the 2 grade level configurations that we're considering. I also want to say to you, there is no fixed decision. I have a favorite. I do. But just because it's my favorite doesn't mean it's right for all children. It's not right for your children, and this is where the conversation comes to play. Is that what is right for our children here at Roxbury? So, the 2 choices that we're talking about here are a dual grade level system and a tri-figure grade level system. The dual grade level system is the K1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will go into that. The tri-grade level system is the K1, 2, 3, 4, 5 model. So, as we go through, I want to show you what that would look like and what the configurations would actually mean. So the option 1, the dual grade level combination. The way that this model would work is students in kindergarten, 1st grade would be together in a classroom. 2nd and 3rd grade students would be together in a classroom. 4th and 5th grade students would be together in a classroom. They would have a single classroom teacher. But what we would do is we would have 2 certified teachers who rotate through each one of those classrooms. So we would have a certified reading teacher and we would have a certified math teacher. If we work this model as the 90-90-90 model, 90 minutes reading, 90 minutes math, 90 minutes science, social studies, we know that specials would come in and we would work where that falls within the schedule. But let's say we'll take the kindergarten, 1st grade. They start their morning with reading. The reading teacher would go there for the first 90 minutes. Second part of their day, they would have mathematics. The math teacher would push into the classroom at that time. And at the end of the day, they would have science and social studies, in which there is not another certified teacher. However, there would be adult support in that class to make certain that the students are able to be managed. What would happen, so if that was what was happening in kindergarten, first grade, in second, third grade, they may start with math, and that's when the math person is there. The middle of their day may be in science, social studies, and the end of their day may be reading. And the person would rotate through, again, to make certain that additional support is given during math and science, math and reading times. So, what's nice to talk about that is the design, but what would that actually look like in numbers? So, right now, the numbers that we have, for kindergarten and first grade, the number of students would be 15 students. The ratio would be 1 to 15. When it's the classroom teacher by herself. However, during math and reading time, the ratio becomes 1 to 7. Looking at 2-3, we have 21 students, 1 to 21. Again, the ratio during math to reading time would be 1 to 11. And fourth and fifth, 26 kids. During math and reading time, it's 1 to 13. So to walk this out, because that's great for next year, what does it look like the following year? And as you can see, our numbers hold steady, 15, 23, and 24. And again, seeing that in math and in reading time, they would have the additional support of 2 certified teachers in that classroom supporting their students' development in reading and mathematics. So option 2, we try figure it out. Affectionately, I'm going to call this the Burnham model, and that is the last time I'm going to say that. Because it's also to say that if this is something that is preferred by the booth-free families, it's going to be the booth-free model. But to say that what happens and what has happened is we have kindergarten, first, second grade students together in the classroom, third, fourth, fifth grade students in the classroom. At that time, you have 2 classroom teachers in that classroom at all times, with the rotation of 1 certified teacher going to both of those classes to give support as necessary. So, when we look at that, what does that look like in numbers? We have 28 in kindergarten, first and second grade. Student to teacher ratio is 1 to 14. For 3, 4, 5, 34. Student to teacher ratio is 1 to 17. Following year, holding constant with the variables we have. Kindergarten, first, second grade, 25. 3, 4, 5, 27. So, as we move forward and as we have the conversations and when we're teasing out the ideas of what happens next, there's a transition plan. As far as making certain that people have the experiences to see what happens, we will be opening up Burnham for people who want to see tours, want to see it in action. That would be something that we want people to know, eyes wide open, this is what it looks like. The other thing that would happen is that we would have students have the experience of multi-age beginning in May. So we would have some opportunities for students to have science classes together with who are going to be their future peers, have some social studies classes. And not only just that, because this is not just academics, there's the social piece to it. So your students would have more recess. We want to make certain that they're understanding that these people are their peers. It's not that they're the older kids in my grade, they are their peers. You think about when your child goes to a playground. The element of play blurs the lines of age. It's not until suddenly where they start comparing each other, and usually it's when one of them has bested the other that then they want to know what grade level they were in. Because either it's bragging rights or it's saying, oh, first grader was faster than me. And so what becomes important is when we start to look at them all as our classmates, we start to create this real social bond. We want to have play dates. We want to have the kids know that it's because they're a year older or a year younger does not make them less suitable as friends. And so looking at this, we will provide some of those opportunities. So the decision-making process that we will have is this is the first of multiple parent meetings. We will have surveys and small group discussions. One of the surveys we will actually start today. We want to make certain that when we have the feedback opportunities, we want to listen. That also means, and I've talked to a couple of parents who are willing to actually host some of these small group conversations because I recognize I can change the dynamics of a conversation. Kathy will change the dynamics of the conversation. We want to have open conversation. We want people to share their ideas. The only way we're going to get better is if we start looking at what are the concerns and addressing them. This is not about leaning away or hoping it gets better if we just let it be. This is about designing for success and to make certain we lean into the problems, to make certain we can actually tease them out to make it work for both of us. So the other thing that's going to happen is then we will take a look at the multi-page configuration. That decision will be made by March. Part of the reason that March timeline is important is because I want to design for how to put resources into the school. We want to make certain that we're doing all of those things. And sometimes that takes a look at what's happening across the district, where we have opportunities to push in the support here, and where we have to pull away other supports. The teacher placements, and I know this is one of those questions that people have. One of the reasons that this becomes an opportunity now is also because I don't have to lay off any teachers. We have a resignation and we have a retirement. And if you notice, both of those configurations that we had on the presentation had 5 certified teachers. Right now we have 7 certified teachers here. So I did hear there was a concern that teachers have to apply for their own jobs. I'm going to say to you, that's not entirely true. They all have jobs. Nobody's getting cut. But what we will do is we want volunteers who want to be here. We're going to open it up to say to the teachers who wants to try something like this. And we're not just going to open that conversation up to just the booth for teachers. All teachers. Who wants to try something? Because when you have people who choose to be here, we treat this very differently than feeling like it's a consolation prize. So then once those positions are filled, so really we're filling booth-free schools first positions. Then we go and we take a look and then we fill positions that are opened based on those who have left the position voluntarily. We are working very closely with the unions. Right now they have supported our process. We're keeping everything in line. But one of those things that is very important to me is that we care for our people here in the district. And we do not want a change to create a hardship on anybody's livelihood. So just wanted to make certain that I talked about that and why that is important in the timeline. We also recognize that we're having concerns. We have to recognize that when my children still receive the benefits of a small class size. Let's face some facts. We moved here because we don't want to have these huge classrooms that you see in some city schools. So is my child going to still receive the benefits? Yes. They will still have access to the adult support that they need. And that's what's the difference between being in a bigger class versus not being supported. So it is important to know that they will still have the same support of the adults. Question is, what if my child struggles? I have a first grader. You're doing a second grade curriculum. What if my child's like, then at that point, number one, we have the supports of teachers who go in. You will have 2 certified teachers, but I will also tell you, it is to make certain that we can put the need where it exists. This is not about where we just push it into a single classroom. It's about taking a look and saying, where's the need for that child? We recognize, and I'm going to call out Dr. Rue for a moment, because in a nice way, because She supports all of our students here at Booth Free. She has to go to 6 different classrooms in order to support inclusion. It's very different when you can support 3 classrooms. It's very different when you can support 2 classrooms and be another adult who's in there working with all students and making it feel like an inclusive setting. And when all students have the ability to do project-based learning, it makes a difference. And so we actually, and I will challenge anyone to say that it's actually more inclusive and it's more supportive to do a multi-language. So the question, what if my child needs enrichment? That's the opportunity that we have when we start to create a learning spectrum. Because you do have some board first graders who could really excel if they go with second grade. We have some board and different categories because not everybody is gifted at everything. So where do we push and where do we find those opportunities? And when we start to blur some of those lines, we can provide some of those challenges based on that need. At some point, tag can be very restrictive. So how do we open up more opportunities for students who need to be pushed a little bit? Again, I told you about my children. They would be really happy just putting in their seat time, and if nobody pushed them, they would be okay. But it's the moment where you can say, but can you do a little bit better? Here's a little bit more of a challenge. What are you going to do with that? And will my child be socially impacted by having non-age peers in their classroom? And I'm going to say to you, if this is about your child being a chronological age and not having peers that are their age, I will tell you they don't have that now in their classroom. Providing more opportunity, more socialization, more ability to learn from one another is what we're seeking and what we're getting. Is going to create a more dynamic learning opportunity. So we are at the point. I just said a whole lot of words. We're at some question and answer time. As I mentioned to you, I'm going to put the disclaimer on. I may not have all of the answers. I will write down the question. We will get it back to you. But at this time, I welcome any questions.
Can you address the logistics? How does the building work? Is it going to be pop-ups in other buildings, janitorial support staff? I mean, it's still a pretty big school with lots of classrooms.
It is, so I'm going to say it out loud, and I apologize. I'm repeating it because we have a camera and I want to make certain anybody who's going to watch this at home. The question was, how are we going to do this logistically? Keeping the building clean, and are there going to be cobwebs in other classrooms, or what happens? And I'm going to say to you, cobwebs-wise, we still have John. That's not changing as far as the level of support within the custodians. If it is the K-1-2 configuration, we may have to alter some walls within Booth in order to make certain we are creating a larger open space. If it is the K-1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we can keep the same spaces. But what should happen to the classrooms that, at this point I'm going to kind of put into parentheses, are now empty? Those should become learning labs. Those should become places in which that may just be where we turn our library in and the kids go and they read over there. We would not let any space go dormant. It allows us to have some more dynamic, which also teachers can set up their science experiments in one of the classrooms, teach over here, because the moment you put a beaker in front of the kids, you've lost their attention forever. So then you can talk about it and then move them to that space. You have the ability to set up. So to say this is not about reducing the use of space, but looking for opportunities to have dynamic use of space. Kathy, please do.
So in addition to that, we look today at our using the major space in one room. So if you have those extra spaces, you can have a true art room, which can also be maker space. You can have a true music room where music can happen more than one day. So the space will always be utilized and shared with the staff.
Questions? Go, please go. Thank you.
I have a question, excuse my ignorance. I come from a place, and I made this where I was born. I immigrated here a couple of years ago, and this is a model that doesn't really work. how should I feel about this change that obviously is coming? And nobody told me this is what's gonna happen to your child, and now I have to take this and say, well, either you like it or you don't like it. And I'm sorry, but what I come from doesn't really work. These are children that, you have these small classrooms and you have children from kindergarten up to 5th grade in some small towns, let's say. And these are children that when they go to 7th grade, then they're not working there. They're not. So one of the reasons, as you said before, I'm not in classrooms, there's small classrooms. So I don't understand, if there is a small classroom, why the children cannot excel if they have a teacher that can focus more on these small groups rather than having different grades and different needs. Like in 1st grade right now, we have children that have special needs or they have other challenges. I can understand they come with people that help them or aids, you could say, but what is about the academic level? How is this teacher included the 1st graders now with the 2nd graders? How are they going to manage all that situation? Are the teachers ready really comfortable with this change? And I feel that we were not asked for the change. This is something that is happening regardless whether we like it or not. That's how I feel. Really.
No,
Thank you.
I agree with you. I'm going to say to you, again, this is not where we're walking out of a cliff where we don't have a net. We've watched our students at Burnham actually thrive going to school. And what we've also watched is the scores, the test scores at Burnham. Right now we have 100% of the kids who are meeting and exceeding the expectations. So it is looking at the opportunity, and I know what you're saying is, how's it going to be better when one teacher has to do the 2 grade levels? And what I'm saying to you is, they don't have to do the 2 grade levels, because if we do the reading and the math person, we'll have 2 teachers, and if they decide that what's best for that group of children in front of them is one of them takes on the upper grade that's in the class and one that takes on the lower grade that's in the class, you've got the ability to have focused, targeted skills. So it shouldn't be that it's a rock set, one size fits all, but it should be that it becomes more fluid and based and adjusted based on the kids' needs in that classroom. So I'm going to say to you, I hear your concern. I can also say that we've seen the success, and I'm happy to share any of the literature and research that I have regarding this, because it's not, I'm not up here to be a salesperson. This is something that has to be research-based and appropriate.
We all come from this industrial level, where you are. I am, work where I work. We all come from that, and we did well, right?
I agree, and we all came from a time where we didn't have iPhones, and our children are so much more proficient with iPhones. So do we not capitalize on what technology is, because we didn't have it back when we were in school? And it is about evolving and changing to the dynamics. We also have more children who are diagnosed with ADHD. And I have to challenge people to say, is that because we have designed something where it's trying to force them into a very square peg that they may not fit into, versus us being able to be more fluid? So I don't know that I'm going to change your mind tonight, but I'm going to also say to you, I'm happy to share any research, just so that way it's not about my opinion versus anybody's opinion, but it's this is the rationale and the reasoning that we think this is a right change for people.
I also invite you, I'm happy I also invite anyone to come to learn. I'm happy to do tours and talk about what's going on there, as well as allow you to talk to the teachers about it, as well as students. So it gives you the opportunity to actually see it in action, if you wish.
But our children too right now are coming from, the grades that they are, and they're already in their separate classrooms. How everybody knows here, everybody, but how is this going to change for them the dynamic? I know children adapt very well to a lot of situations as adults we cannot do, and they do better than us with change. I do recognize that. But, but I'm concerned about that too. How is that going to happen? Is it going to be, oh, next year, here you are all together, whatever the design is, or is this knowing that this plan to be gradual for them?
For them, I think we want to give them some of those experiences to gradually pull them in. And that is about the adults supporting some of those socializations, you know, to have Mr. Morgan come in and create a kickball game so that way there's some socialization that starts happening in advance of. This is not where we're going to just put in a model and then say, have that at Synchro Swim students. This is about us to make certain that we're designing for those successful moments. And sometimes that is creating the configuration to have the school-wide, you know, play dates, so to say, so kids can get to know and learn and meet one another. I can say that when we talked about the dual grade level, the question becomes, well, that science and social studies time is really when that certified one teacher is working with the group. And at that point, one of the things that we can introduce is an A-B grade level model, in which one year they teach the second grade science standards, and the next year they teach the third grade science standards. I will tell you, the first year, it should be the upper grade level expectation, so it should be the third grade science standards, because then when they go to the next class, they're already prepared. And then when second grade goes up and becomes third grader, they're getting that second grade science content that they may have missed the year before. I will tell you the challenge is if you have a lot of transients in a school. Because if they have gotten the AB model and then they move away, they lose some of their grade level expectations. Right now, we do not have a lot of transients in this district. It is a calculated risk, but I will tell you that is one that I will openly share. It is something that is a concern. If we have somebody who moves in, it will be about how do we prepare them to be part of that classroom and compact if necessary.
Just one clarification to make. First of all, philosophically, I do like the idea of coming out of dark ages. I do think we have a long way to go with education, design in this country and probably elsewhere. So philosophically, I'm on board. In terms of the specialists, I'm looking at the ratios. The math reading, for example, is 1 to 7 in your charts. Are there 2 math instructors at the same time with kids?
So the math push-in plus that grade level teacher would be the other math teacher in that area.
So they could be playing different
Exactly right. Exactly. Thank you for clarifying.
Might I also say that, and this happens at home, because you have multi-grade, and if your child has already acquired the skills, means assessment to drive instruction, has already acquired the skills, we are able to move that child to a different level. So for instance, this year, in my 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we are also teaching 6th grade now to students who have already accomplished all this. And that is very clear. That can happen to me as well. So when the students are sitting together, they don't talk about, I'm a kindergartner, I'm a 1st grader, I'm a 2nd grader. They are part of a community. So when we assess the meeting, they're just mixed groups of kids based on their ability, and we can move them forward in a much quicker way. So does that make sense?
I'm not gonna make you sing.
No, we have some of the greatest teachers here, and I love them, and I support them, and they do a wonderful job. And contractually, teachers have so many hours in their day, and they do a wonderful job with our students already. How feasible is it if they're not finding out their position until April, what it's gonna be, to get them training or professional development or time to put these new configured classrooms together and figure out their new roles and their new materials and what they're gonna have to do by August. I mean, if we're looking at this long term and we wanna make decisions wise and we wanna have this program the best it can be for our kids, what's the push to get it done in 6 months or less? How prepared are they gonna be able to take that challenge on and give our kids the first year at this the best experience?
I think your point is well taken. I'm not going to pretend that it's going to be a smooth flight the whole way. We do recognize there will be a considerable amount of professional development that is needed for the teachers, which is also why the volunteers to be here are very important. We want people who want to try this out. As far as preparation and what needs to be done, once we've put together the configuration, it is about having our Director of Curriculum and Instruction put together what does the plans look like. It is about making certain that we give them those professional development opportunities. I do have to say, in looking at the staff we have today, many of them have the experiences of different grade levels. There are very few who've only done that one grade level, so they know the varying expectations. It's not about compacting curriculum, it's about recognizing the learning experience. We have spent a considerable amount of time changing from skill-based learning to conceptual learning, and the teachers have been along with that ride. And so when you teach conceptually, you're able to then change up and down. Kathy has done a lot of work with levels of questioning, and those are the types of learning shifts that the teachers need to have in order to make this shift. But I am going to be very honest with you, there are things that we're going to be learning while the everything is in place. It is going to be about saying, as you're going through this, what do we need in order to develop their skill set? And that's, I think Kathy had said, one of her first questions when somebody volunteers is, okay, what are you bringing to the table? Not as a way to be defensive, but really, like, what do you see are your own skills that are going to help make this learning curve smaller? Because I'm not going to disagree with you. How do we make certain that they're ready, they feel prepared, they're ready to take care of the children that are in front of them? That's our charge, to make certain this is done with support. And that's also why I'm going to say to you, this couldn't have been done last year. We need to give attention where it's needed.
They also have their colleagues at Vernon.
I don't need it, I'm loud.
Okay, all right, you're right by there.
Yes, yes.
All right, I have a few concerns that come to mind. The first one I'd want to know more, which I don't need to know right now, but it are specifics on what is being considered to be success at Burnham in terms of metrics. And I'm not just talking about test scores, but specifically what do they think has been successful because they made this change. That's number one. Number two, I would want to know how, from the fifth grader standpoint, it almost seems like in this type of configuration for fifth grade, they only have one way to go, which is potentially being brought down versus having an advantage. Like the other grades can have a step up in this configuration, but fifth grade is almost feeling like they're being brought down. And then my third is, I don't feel that Sarah's question was answered. Why is this being jammed in this time frame? What's the reason for the push versus taking a more gradual approach to maybe just starting a couple classes combined and seeing how it works and looking to do something different in the following school year?
Great question.
I'm going to say to you, those questions are in order to say to you, I don't have some of those answers, and I will get back to you on some of those answers. Time frame wise, I can say to you, we have a model of success within the district, so it's not as fearful to say if it's going to be, we know it can be. And I think that's where being able to go a little bit faster is because we know it can work. Kathy, do you want to mention about the fifth grade, or we can do it at another time?
So, I don't agree that it's pushing the fifth graders down. In fact, as I mentioned, we do have some students doing sixth grade work. I will say that the students in my 3 through 5th grade classrooms made much more than any student that I've ever seen. They are reading at higher levels than any other student. They are well prepared to go to Chicago. And the other piece about 5th grade is we recognize those 5th graders need the same experiences as the entire district. So we don't take that away. We allow them to be a part of any transition activity that all 5th graders have. We want to make sure that they are recognized as being special. So when there's the 5th grade track meet, they all go. If it's up at Chicago meeting, doing the Chicago Day up at Chicago, they'll all go to that. So we make sure that those traditional things are made. But academically, the students are scoring not just on their smart balance, which is phenomenal, but all around. Their math scores, they're reading at extremely high levels. And I think it's because of the motivation. The motivation is incredible. I will also say in K through 2, the motivation is there too. Transition at the beginning of the school year with our kindergartners is seamless because the other children help them to learn their routines. I have kids who see other kids reading other books and they'll say, I want to read that. So they really push themselves to achieve, at a higher level. It's they're motivated, they're extremely motivated, and it's exciting to see. Listen, I have to be honest with you. I was exactly like you. In 2014, when it was presented to me to start looking at multi-grade, I said, oh no, we can't do that. But the more we researched, the more work that we did, we visited, I looked at every school system in the state of Connecticut. We found 9 districts that were doing that. We visited 9 districts. We visited magnet schools that were huge. We visited small schools. We went to Hartford and Haven, a variety of different places. And we brought back information, and we had to make it ours, just like you have to make it yours. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited about us recreating Blue Free School and making it what we want it to be. Right now, a Burton School is a showcase. I show that school to numerous districts who are now interested. Last week, I just had Sherman come 2 different days because they're thinking of doing multi-grade in their pre-K grade. We had a school, a group from Cambridge, Mass. that came recently. They're building a brand new huge facility, but they're excited about multi-grade. And they're thinking of doing multi-grade in a huge facility because they see the benefits of it. So I'm passionate about it, and I'm excited for who, but I really open my doors over there so you can come and actually see it in action. You can talk to the teachers. If you ask the teachers today, would you go back to see their class? They will tell you no. And I'm not going to ask them, and I'm going to be there. They'll tell you no, they don't want to go back because they see the benefits. Not only academically, but there's benefits socially and emotionally. I have less behavioral issues out on my playground because it is a true community. And that's what it's all about, creating a community. And those children just love working together. Again, those grade levels really kind of disappear in a conversation. And that's what it's all about. It's about the continuation of education and looking at our students as individuals and letting them move forward when they're ready to move forward. I just, if you ever have any questions, want to continue to talk to me, I'm always there. And again, I'm willing to give you tours. Come and see it. But I don't want it to be burden. I want it to be Booth. And I want Booth to be special.
So it'd be helpful to have testaments from the parents
Yep.
at Burnham, not necessarily from
Yes,
the
absolutely.
sales team, sorry.
Yep.
We get
Yeah,
it, we get
yes.
it, we get it.
From the parents want to hear it. Should we go back? No, best thing ever. And on the best thing ever, nothing is perfect. You have to tell us what doesn't work.
Mhm.
Okay. It is hard to see. I'm a father of a daughter in kindergarten, so I'm here for the next 5 years. It is hard to see 10 to 1 that we have now, and you can see 14 to 1. It is hard to see that. Does the overall budget of the Booth School change with either of these models compared to the model now? Because I thought I heard you have 7 teachers now, and you're going to go down to 5. You don't have to hire 2 more. Is that true?
We have the 2 teachers who have resigned and retired.
Yeah.
So at that point, we are not rehiring for
Right.
those 2 empty positions, so yes.
Okay,
7.
but you would if we stayed with the current model.
Yes.
Okay. So the overall budget of the school will go down based off of either of those 2 models, the 2-tier or the 3-tier, right?
I can tell you that happened, however, I can also say this is not financially motivated.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's.
I have a follow-on question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I don't like that.
Why did you guys make me do it if you don't have to?
So, as an educator, and you're far smarter than I am at this, particular business, would you choose to go with this system if you were running a school with no capital restrictions? Or is this financially motivated?
I would absolutely choose a model of multi-age
Okay.
over having the traditional model.
So you took over with that seat, that's your deal, your divorce,
Wow, did I just get categorized? Wow. No, but it's to say to you, what do I think is the right model for education? I think it is personalizing the education.
Okay, so there's no financial motivation relative to this decision.
This was not financially motivated, but I can tell you there is benefit to know that I'm not changing anybody's livelihood, and that is important.
Okay, on the expense side, all right, understood.
Yep.
Okay, and I think it would be healthy for everyone to understand the metrics with Burnham,
Mhm.
because they went through this and it seems to be successful and support everything that everyone's saying here. But it would be great to see, what was past performance versus post performance of going through this transition, so we can all understand that. And I would also say that, with regard to the Region 12 diagram you have for population, it would be great to carve out Roxbury relative to Washington and Bridgewater, because I think there's, a microeconomic factor
I'm gonna
there.
agree, and I can tell you, anybody who wants a preview of coming attractions with that, the Prouder report was just put onto our website, and it does have all of our data, and so you can also see that the declining enrollment at elementary is not particular to just Roxbury. And I know, and I'm going to see you pull up one quick moment. I also want you to know when we're looking at Burnham and we're talking about the success rates and all of those things, I want you to consider it as a multi-age, not that we're trying to turn this into Burnham, but I think the request to have the metrics I'm happy to share. We're happy to have parents come if we feel that we would just like to ask them. We're going to be having a small group next, and if you say one of the groups we'd love to just have a Burnham parent so we can just pepper them with questions, we're happy to do that, and we'll even get middle of the road. I won't even get the person who's the PTO president, but to say to you, our eyes are wide open on how we want you to not be sold on something, but to showcase something.
Can I add one
Last
request?
question, wait, sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. No, and you guys have been wonderful with our kids. There's no question about it. If it's not budget related, why change?
And I think as you just asked me
Yeah.
if I could do anything in the system,
Yeah.
if we can be dynamic and I can make support more fluid, both additional and when to back away, I think that is the best way to educate children.
Okay. Thank you very
Julie.
much.
On the request for metrics, I think would also be helpful. I understand that the Burnham population has doubled because of tuition in. So comparing apples to apples, it would be useful to see. I assume you looked at metrics and sort of
We have,
moving students from pre-tuition to
continuing burden.
And that's Bridgewater's decision with what they've done with tuition in. I can tell you, whereas we have one price for tuition in, Bridgewater does give money back to families who choose tuition in at Burnham. I can also tell you, and I know this is, we have a wait list at Burnham because I had to stop people from coming in. And it was the conversation of what is that ring number. This is also, again, not trying to turn this into Burnham, but to also say, as far as tuition in, we don't have the numbers here at booth 3. We also don't have the incentive in Roxbury that we do in Bridgewater, and that would be the conversation. And that's part of why this conversation is designing, is we get to have some of those conversations along the way as we configure.
I'm more focused on if we're gonna look at metrics that we're comparing that, because that's.
I hear what you're saying. So what you're saying is that looking at the cohort that is just Bridgewater children and take away from the children who are tuitioning in, we can pull the metrics out.
To depend maybe just a little bit in terms of financial. It's always financial, and not to, this has been coming for a long time. This, I'm organizing our 7th regional dance. 7 years ago was when we decided to go on consolidation and fail, unfortunately. And so this, for parents who have lived here for the past 7, however many years, this has been coming for a long time. And we've seen it at Burnham. And I think for me, the 3 things that have delayed it at STEM, I think we have a couple classes that are larger. It's 14. If you ask a teacher in any other school district, will say that is not large. And I think kind of transition to superintendent. So this is going to come. And I think that, I think Megan brings up good points. I would hope that the things that she highlighted for multi-age classrooms happen in industrial classrooms as well, where teachers are finding, strengths and weaknesses in each kid and not just in that multi-age. I hope that's happening in all the classrooms. But I think that the town has voted to keep this school open. And 70 kids in 5 in class is not healthy. If you ask any teacher, they will tell you that that is not ideal. So if the town wants to keep this school open, there needs to be a change. So this is what needs to happen. One of these options is what needs to happen.
That's a great point, and I would disagree a little bit in the fact that I believe the town voted in favor of consolidation.
No, they didn't. They did not. No,
We
Washington.
500 to 300 against consolidation.
Okay, so
Bridgewater was 800 to 80.
Gotcha, okay, so we
Well,
were
Roxbury
more
was
in favor of consolidation. I was in favor of consolidation. But I just want to make sure that our
We're
tax
not
dollars
opening
are
Pandora's
being,
box now, but okay.
sorry, are being represented properly, that's all.
I had a question. You spoke about putting kids or taking kids out of putting kids into a square peg. What happens when they go from 5th to 6th going back into the square peg?
And I'm going to say to you, I think that it is about the opportunities we need to continue going forward. So when you ask the question about the evolution and what needs to happen, I think that is exactly then how do we prepare the middle school to start along some of those lines. Having, not to make everything about oversight, but to have those hands-on experiences where the children are coming in and being able to design some of their own education, trying to get students who, if we have more evidence, if we have the opportunity to actually tailor, that is important. But I'm going to say to you, you bring up a wonderful concern that I don't have an answer for right now.
So I've seen it happen with other, say, Montessori type schools, other students trying to transfer into a normal type district, and there is a very big discrepancy, and it's not a really hard time transitioning.
And this is, I appreciate, and I'm not involved in this.
Idea, I'm not against it, but I just have seen other kids struggle going into that transition.
I can completely hear what you're saying, and this is where I can say, we haven't had that issue with our students. I think the only thing that actually was probably an issue, getting our kids to raise their hands, they weren't used to that, or waiting their turn. Just kind of an interesting dilemma to have, because everything was just kind of a casual conversation. But to say to you, it is absolutely imperative that we are designing a middle school in order to appropriately handle the needs of you're gonna have kids who, if we do this well and we accelerate them, then we're gonna have to change the expectations of what we're expecting in sixth grade, rather than putting them back in the box right now and saying, here's the end of that grade level. Gonna come back here, 'cause I have, okay.
I have a question about the scalability of this. So this, I know this is a big conversation in town, but so there's always talk, there's a plan about how to bring more young families in. So let's say that plan, whatever that plan is, works, and now all of a sudden, over the next few years, instead of it being a flat growth of students in school, we have more and more and more. How do you scale this? How do you keep that good student-teacher ratio?
And I'm gonna tell you, if at that point we turn back to singleton grade levels, then this model was really about enrollment. It would be about adding an additional classroom. That would be a K1 classroom at that time. So we would have 2 K1 classrooms. And it would just be, divide up the kids and figure out how they go into those 2 classrooms. But that would be our way to scale and grow, would be through that adding more multi-age classes rather than taking away and making it the same. I'm gonna go over here and welcome you, Julie.
I don't need that. I'm new to the district. The other side of my family, my wife, she grew up here. She went to the school here. I grew up in Terryville, but my daughters have been in school in Naugatuck. We just came in the fall. My daughter, her class within second grade, she was one of 26 with 2 other classes at the same grade level. So it was a large school. And the ideas of, that type of having that many kids in a class and that type of first, second, third, kids get lost, things like it doesn't happen. It all depends on the teachers that you have. And it's not just the teachers. I can't say anything about Roxbury because I haven't been here long enough. But the principal that she had at her school at Western Elementary, it was top notch. Getting grant money to help the kids, getting the right teachers for the right classes was phenomenal. And it all starts at the top. Getting into that, what I see from the way that this has all gone and everything like this, it's communication. We're talking about all this, but the reality is the decision's already been made. And I don't care what anybody says, the decision's been made. It's obvious because when I first started listening tonight, it looked like we were 2 to 3 months out. Well, then a couple paragraphs in, we're a month out because in March is when you're looking to start implementing the LIL. So for something that there's going to be communication and talking about, we're already into it's been implemented. I mean, you can't start talking now and in a month be ready to start phasing it in. So obviously, this has been ongoing for a while, the thought of doing it.
The thought has, yes. The thought has, yes.
So if we had a huge say in it, it would have been earlier on. It wouldn't be at the point that we're at now where it's just, you're kind of just bringing to us, hey, this is where we're going. We can tailor it, but this is the direction that we're going. In that, if that's what if you're trying to sell this to us, I felt you would have brought more facts, not just from Burnham, but other districts, and both the positives and the negatives. Because, like some other people said, I kind of waited for a while because sometimes your questions get answered. But, that's why I feel that we're just kind of being told what's going on. Because if you were selling it to us and we were going to buy into it, you would have had a lot more information for us. But obviously, we're just going forward with this, and I mean, it's not like we're going to go backwards.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I hear what you're saying, and I'm going to say we will have additional meetings with additional information. So to say to you, metrics and all of those things, we want to design based on what you want to hear, because it is about not cramming something down as far as the type of model. I'm really feeling the right model is to redesign.
And then the only other thing was just, kind of just going along the lines of the students feeling as peers if they're more in these joint classes. My daughter's in 3rd grade. She's been invited to 5th grade birthdays, 1st grade birthdays. She's best friends with everybody here. I don't feel that that's gonna change, you know, and so to use that as a, you know, that everybody's gonna get along better and there's gonna be more, you know, connectability or whatever between the peers. I think the type of school that we have now, with the size of it, I think that, you know, the friends are the friends, and regardless of first and second being together or second and third, you know, I don't think that's gonna change at all. I thought I had one more, but there's a lot that I wrote.
So we have 5 more opportunities, so don't feel like you can't put answer me if I have some hands up.
Quick question, are you gonna open it to out-of-towners? Are you gonna open up booths to out-of-towners?
As far as tuition in,
Yeah,
like,
like we have it right now.
that's open throughout the entire district. It's been open for a number of years. So the only difference between what's happening in Bridgewater and what happens here is Bridgewater actually will reimburse people who do the tuition in with part of the tuition and payments, and that's not an option here within Roxbury. So we're not opening it up other than what's already been in existence for a number of years, and we don't have a lot of people who have taken us up on tuitioning in into booth 3.
So if we don't opt for coming here, do you give anything back to the families to go somewhere else?
If we don't opt
If we don't wanna go to, we don't wanna be part of this model, and we send our kids somewhere else, do we get some kind of credit?
there is no.
So we have no choice.
This is the model that we're going with as first choice.
I do recall this point, and I understand this has been a long time coming. I personally can see a lot of advantages of combining grades at some level, and hoping that you can speak to what you would view as relative advantages of combining 3 grades at a time versus 2. In my mind, I see that like the student-teacher ratio remains similar, but you know, again, to reiterate your point, right? Most of us, all of us, probably moved here without the intention or the hope that our kids would be in a class of 34. And even if there are more teachers in that classroom, I think just the mass of students and the shuffling of papers and bodies is a very different environment than one student with 13 students, or one teacher with 13 students. So I'm hoping that you can speak to, again, an assumption that this is sort of the model that we're moving to in some form, what you view as the relative advantage of combining 3 grades versus 2.
You're asking me to show my hand on which one's my
Yeah,
preference.
you said you have a favorite. How do you know it is?
I'm going to say to you, yes, if I was to be put on the spot, the dual grade level I find is the most appropriate for booth 3, in my opinion. The easy is to say we can take the model that worked at Brown, and if people saw that and said, yes, that's what we want to do, we can do that here, and we have a functional model. Or if you ask me, what do I feel is the best, I lean towards that. But again, that's a statement of, that's what my thought is, I don't want to impose that upon others.
And that's driven by just the like sort of bodies in the classroom, or the fact, like in my mind, right, I see a kindergartner, and I just view them as so drastically a different human being than a second grader, and I can't imagine them coexisting in a social studies classroom together. I hear that it occurs.
I can tell you, I've seen it firsthand, and I can tell you that.
So I know that that's very scary, and people may think that, but with our kindergarten through second grade, there's a lot of things kindergartners do separate, so that, for instance, all the specials, they have it separately. Because PE developmentally, I don't want them running around with second graders, they might get hurt, so we have that separate. They still have their center time. Kindergartners need to play, right? So they still have that, and they have it at the end of the day, while first and second graders have other things, like they might have computers, or they might have library. And it's very seamless, so that the kids don't really realize that they get what they need. Art is separate, music is separate. Together, they do morning meeting together. When it's reading time, language arts, everybody's doing language arts, but they're doing it at their level.
But what's the relative advantage though, again, of having K through 2 versus having K and 1 together? Like what do you see as like, oh, this works better because we have 3 grades?
You know, and I can't really pinpoint exactly what works better. When people come to visit my school, I tell them you have to look at your school configuration, like what does the building look like, what makes sense for you. So in a K through 2, the beauty part about that is kids don't, the teachers know them for 3 years. They know where they left off and it's seamless. With a K and 1, for instance, they have the same teacher for 2 years. It's the same idea, but one configuration has less transitions than the other. And the other, and the K through 2 and 3 through 5, they have 2 teachers that are teaming with them all the time. However, having said that, when we look at both models, they still have the same support. It just looks a little different. Because you remember, they have classroom teacher, you have a reading teacher, you have a math teacher, and you have that literacy tutor or paraprofessional. So each of the classrooms will have 4 adults, like my, like Berta, but just in a different way. The rotation might be a little different.
A lot of human bodies.
It's a lot of human bodies. I can tell you what I saw, because I'm just going to say from that distance. When it was a science lesson, it's a kindergarten first and second grader. The second grader was the recorder.
Correct.
First grader would be doing recording, and the kindergartner was shaping their ideas, and it was being transcribed. So that is one opportunity in which they're now having that shared learning experience. And it is also giving more empowerment to that second grader, where they're actually kind of being their own little CEO of that group and working through role model. And having the kindergartners who picked up the pencil and they were saying, here's how you spell it. And it takes away that fear of spelling during a time in which it's science. So some of those advantages, but I also hear some of the limitations when we're looking at the numbers here. And so that's why when you ask me, showing my hand, when I look at the numbers, that's what makes me lean in one direction or the other.
If we are becoming a full district, and now we have 2 schools that are not industrialized, and I'm a middle schooler, so I know how fast it goes. Go to high school planning meeting, I'm like myself. Will the district then, or the middle school and high school has to adapt culturally? Will that be something to also think about as we get to that level? Because now you've got kids who are, you have 2 schools out of 3 that are transitioning. So is the staff thinking about how to support this model?
I think in totality, we're looking at how we are teaching right now. And it is about making certain that we're looking to enrich and support. And I think when you try to box children in that grade level, it makes it very difficult. So to say to you, how do we prepare our middle schooler? I think that is part of this evolution, but they don't have that everything right now.
Is Washington being moved to this model as well?
One, I'm going to say to you, not right now. We're going to do again. I want to have that focus and attention on this school because otherwise we're draining on resources and we want to make certain that this is successful. And so part of it is putting the full emphasis on that. As far as what's going to happen in Washington, what is the decision? I think it's looking at, again, when I said to you, we're looking at each school area. The towns are very different and what is appropriate for that. So right now, this is about Roxbury's evolution and making certain Roxbury has the attention and support that it needs for this to be successful.
So Regent, would it make sense for, since Burnham has had long-range classrooms, to have a couple of their teachers come over here to start?
And I'm going to say to you, I think you've brought up a very good point, and that's why when I say volunteering to come to Booth, it's not just going to be about Booth teachers, because I do think you're absolutely right. We have some experience with the other school, and to look for the ability to pull on some of that expertise, but that would be, again, taking a look and making this about how do we rise up all schools. It's not just one school, and it's not just how do we make every school better? And sometimes we pull in one resource from another to rise up everybody so that way the learning curve is shaped. But
I'm sort of trying to wrap my head around the logistics of the classroom, and a lot of people have alluded to, like, really the success, and I've read a lot on it too, the success of this model is based on really the teacher's performance, and how you properly prepare the teachers, and like Sarah said, we're doing this and Paul, like, it's in such rapid motion. How do you properly prepare? Is there like a multi-classroom school for teachers? Like, what is the preparation?
we don't send them on to us.
And it's not even just from the perspective of the curriculum. It's the perspective of how these teachers have to become like time managers and managers of other teachers. And how does that all logistically play out to make sure that it's not chaos and that everything is moving in like a fluid fashion? There's a lot happening when you're kind of multitasking.
I can speak as a, not as a board member, but as a teacher with over 16 years of experience. We are extensively trained in the idea, it's called differentiation, where, within your classroom, not every student learns the same way. So we're very comfortable as a whole looking at this student and saying, okay, this is an appropriate level for you, whereas this person may need something completely different. So it's sort of ingrained in us, and there are multiple, even in my classroom right now, I have 11th and 12th graders. I have seniors, and within that classroom, there are students going to Ivy League schools and students who aren't going to college. And, it's natural for teachers to be able to do that. So
And I hear that from a curriculum perspective, but my concern is also like, because you need to become like a time manager, like managing additional people coming in and out, and like, at this point, they're dealing with one classroom, and okay, we're all gonna get up and go to the computer lab, and off you go. This is like, okay, I'm gonna send this one out, and now I have to go over here, and I'm teaching this one this, and this teacher's coming in, all right, when we tell them, like, there's just, like, that doesn't really happen necessarily.
That comes with clear planning though. And the first thing that we did is create a schedule of what it looks like. They have to know what it looks like and where the rotations will take place.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have that clear planning of who's coming in and who's not, we have that now. We have people going in and out of the classroom now. Once you have that, and in one of our meetings, I think we're going to show you some scheduling to see what it looks like. Once that's done, and teachers have that perspective of what's going to happen day to day, time block to time block. And then they'll know what they need to do. I mean, they will look at their standards and make sure that the standards are being covered at every grade level. But as you have mentioned, some of the standards are very similar. And when you differentiate, you're able to handle that.
And it's also, to make the analogy, it's very similar, just transitions, very similar to when you have younger children, and you're trying to go from, your house to the playground. I mean, I know it's not the best analogy, but
I have 4.
No,
yeah. I'm right there, the analogy with you.
No, so teachers, we pick up on that, and we've learned over time, how to minimize disruption.
One final question for me, and then I'll stop talking. So is it, from a legislative perspective, obviously we elected a board of education. Thank you all so much for your commitment to the community. And the superintendent, you certainly done a wonderful job tonight. Is this now just a board of education and superintendent decision, or is this a vote? What's the legislative process to go from today to like the final determination for the Roxbury schools?
And this is where the determination, we are going to do surveys. I'm looking for parent feedback. I gave you all my cell phone number on that piece of paper. It wasn't just to be kind, it was say specific questions you have, we want to answer. Collecting all the data, taking a look at configurations, taking a look at the feedback that we've received, and then making a decision. What I would present to the board is really where we are going and the budget.
Thank you.
I just have a question, kind of following up on Justin's comment. He says he has 11, 12 graders. If you're putting 26 children in a room, sort of following Julie's down at the chaos and the amount of just children in the room, how does that affect our kids being, lost in who's where educationally? I want to be sure that our kids aren't going to get, pushed forward because they can move up a grade. Additionally, the reading teachers and the math teachers are now going to be responsible for 70 children, not just their one grade. So what's to say that the kids aren't going to get lost in their education and where they are, and if they're struggling, who are they going to know that they can ask for help, because now they have 4 teachers instead of just the one teacher that they've created a relationship with their entire year.
And I think, and this is where, your example of that one math teacher. It's also going to be their one math teacher that goes with them throughout their entire educational career at Booth. That's the one person who's going to see when they've made that leaps and bounds that they did it. And they're going to see it in small chunks. They're not looking at all 70 children at once. They're looking at that child during that lesson.
But they're teaching all 70 children all day, all year for those years. I mean, I see your point, but on a scale of per year, they're responsible now from going from, our kids' class has 16 to 70. So they have to teach 70 students daily.
Well, remember, they're pushing in and supporting it. They'll be working with that classroom teacher. So it could be if it's
at once, right? I understand that, but
no.
only one math teacher.
No, but the other teacher doesn't leave the class when the math teacher comes in. They're both in that classroom and they're both going to be working on the math lessons. And whether or not it's the decision of those 2 teachers to say, you know what, this group separates out pretty nicely and this is the grade level and we'll both teach to that grade level, or they say, you know what, there's some fluidity, we can move this in different ways. You've got another pair of hands on deck and you have somebody who actually walks them through the entire curriculum of their elementary career, knowing the expectations and knowing where they're going to go. So it does support some of those plannings and next steps. Yes.
Is it possible for a student to excel from like 2nd to 3rd grade in reading, but not excel in math and get stuck in between grades?
And to say to you, that's where the personalization should happen. So it can be that if the following year that we push them up in, reading, they do well, but not in mathematics, well then we take a look and say, what do they need in reading?
What's between the grade separation?
And that's what, again, it's that personalization that may need to happen. We may need to put another teacher who's going to go in and work on a different curriculum expectation with them. This is where we want to have, because we have more support people coming in. It can be that they are giving a blended learning opportunity where now they may be working on computer-based program to get some of their learning in order to stretch their thinking, but they're getting the conceptual-based instruction within their peers. So it allows for some, I'm not saying this in the way that I want to. I'm going to take an example. Let's say you have your 2nd grader. Your 2nd grader who really excelled in the 3rd grade math when they were in a 2nd, 3rd grade. Okay? Now they're the 3rd grader who doesn't need more 3rd grade math and needs 4th grade because that's their next challenge. So at that point, we actually design a time on which they are going to get that stretch for 4th grade learning. So it's being able to either, whether we're tapping into technology, whether we're getting another teacher who's going to come down, or whether that teacher during small group, when they have another group going, works specifically with that child based on that. So it allows for more personalization rather than compartmentalizing them into that grade specific category.
You still have impressionists
Yes.
evolving for those types of people.
So I want to follow up with what she's saying, because I understand what you're saying. There is a math teacher who pushes in the first 90 minutes to K1, the second 90 minutes with 2, 3, and the last 90 minutes with 4 or 5. She's now, or he's now teaching 35 students. versus say they split the
I
math.
hear you.
and-
Yep.
But that over the course of the years, if I'm the math teacher, I might not stick with those same 35. So there's a potentiality that I'm working with all 70 students. So I think what would be helpful, and I know you can't do it right now, but like the follow-up information is, what does that then look like in terms of how the two teachers, and then the two teachers and the two teachers are planning together and assessing together so that it, on paper, it looks like 70, but because you're sharing the load with the 3 classroom teachers, it's not, because you are working with 70 kids over the course of a year. So what does that look like in terms of planning and grading and assessing and knowing your kids?
So in mathematics, for instance, for each module, there will be in the planning time for the teachers to plan together, right? So that they know when they go into the classroom what modules they're doing. Very often, the team of teachers, the classroom teacher and that math teacher, or the classroom teacher and the reading teacher, will say, I would like to flip to the other group because I want to get to know all the kids. Because as they do look at all the children, you can't have one teacher not know all the kids or their skills. So at times they do flip grades, or they can choose to stick with one grade, but they're not working with 70 kids all at once, if you know what I mean. They are splitting that class, and how they do that is up to the team that wants to decide how to do that. And sometimes they do alternate it because they just want to know what all the kids are doing, so that they can have that good conversation about that and know where kids are going.
I'm gonna have her read the last questions. I'm also mindful of we've got little friends who are over babysitting. And I'm going to also say that any of the questions, this is not the end. This is the questions that as they come tonight, if you email me tonight, we will make sure we adjust the next one. But I want to answer the final.
How is it that in the classroom, when they have the teacher and the, 2 grades, let's say kindergarten and first grader, and the teacher, they're supposed to have different levels of curriculums as we are right now? How, when the teacher is asking questions, or there's not going to be any more questions when they raise their hands, and they're saying, oh, I have the answer. Because you have a kindergartner and the questions of the first graders could be different, they're a different level. So how is that handling this new age? How the kids, when you have the classroom right now, you're asking questions. How 2 + 2, who have the answer? So you have the children in their hands. How is it going to work for a kindergarten and a first grader right now? How does it work? How does it work right now?
So you would have 2 different groups. So you would have an adult instructing 2 different groups. So they do smaller group instruction that's more individualized. So it's not a whole group, it's not the whole class is learning one thing. We're learning what they need to learn. They're the same class.
They are in the same.
Why do you not break the math? Sorry. Why do you not just break out math?
Sometimes they do, and that's what I'm
Oh, yeah,
going to say. Sometimes that does happen, and so this is what, it gives the option of flexible choice. And that's, again, when people ask why does it benefit, it's because I see the fluidity and being strategic in how we utilize staff versus having them be stagnant and stuck in one location. So this time I'm going to say to everybody, I appreciate you coming out. Thank you. We're not done with the conversation. We are going to continue. Anything that you want to talk between tonight and when's the next one? I have it on the calendar, guys. Feel free to reach out to me. You have asked wonderful questions. We're going to go back. We're going to get the answers that